Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Sabrina here from BeSmartee. Welcome and thank you for joining today's session, Leveraging Digital to Enhance the Borrower's Experience in Today's Virtual World. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We have Josh Friend from Insellerate and Joe Edwards from BeSmartee. Couple of things before we get started here. Feel free to use the chat box for any questions. We will answer them at the end. And a recorded version of this webinar will be available after the session. And for those of you just joining, a very warm welcome. Let's go and get started. Take it away, Josh and Joey.
Thanks, Sabrina. Really appreciate it. Excited to do this. Both our companies have a great integration, and we are serving really our customers. I think you guys have seen a lot of growth last year. We as well. Basically, as customers have moved more into a virtual world, the industry already was moving to a virtual world. It's not necessarily new. It just sped up a lot last year. So, both of us are serving that. Both of us are just serving that marketplace, really well. What I wanted to talk about, and I think what we're really going to talk about is how do you meet the customer where they're at? Right? It's really about the customer experience. And actually right now is what does the customer demand? Customers now demand a better experience. They definitely demand a better experience in the mortgage industry. So really, how do you provide that? To get started, maybe some key points I want to look at is how have we done so far as an industry? So we can take a look at some stats that we've done. We have we've done several case studies where we've gone out to this one. I think it was a sample set of 592 lenders, and we go online and apply for a mortgage, and we track: do they call us? Do they email us? Do they text us? How often do they do those? Do they perform those tasks? What's the consistency of it? What we can tell you is in the 4 different years of studies we have done, every time over 50% of every online digital lead was ignored. There wasn't an email. There wasn't a call. There was nothing. In 2017, 0.4% of people used text. 2018, it was 9% of people used text. So we're not really doing a good job if we're not even calling these people. Then the people that did get called, an average thing was 1.3 times do they actually get called. So you would call. Most people got one call. If they didn't respond, there was no more engagement to that customer. Now this is top lenders in the country. This isn't just smaller lenders. This is lenders all across the board. So we have not served our industry very well. We look at text messaging. A lot of lenders are struggling text messaging with their customers right now, even though it's the most widely read form of communication. 98% of text messages are responded to within 2 minutes of someone, or read within 2 minutes of receiving it. And there's no other communication that we now consume like that. But lenders have struggled to really, to really use that. Going into kind of how do you look at this overall digital landscape, building the customer experience. What is it you need to do to really partake in that? I want to kind of go where I'm going to say the 3 C's right now, which is connection, consistency, and coordination. First is think about connection. What's the experience that your customer has when they first enter your store? Whether you have a physical office, whether it's a virtual office, whether it's a chat window, whether it's through social media, could be a phone call, could be an email. What's that connection look like? How are you managing that connection? It's really important if you're looking at your customers and you're trying to, really meet them where they're at, you want to outline that customer journey. So start, shop yourself, look at your, apply for your own mortgage, see what the process is, understand what the connection is. You have to make sure you have a good process into making sure you're consistently making connection, right? So consistency, that's the next thing. And the great thing about digital and technology is you can automate it. You don't have to worry about an employee each day coming in and doing a certain task. A lot of these things you can automate. So if you set it up correctly, get consistency in the journey, you're going to drive more customers. You're not only going to drive more, higher conversions and get more customers, you're going to make customers happier. Customers like a consistent approach, right? If you're refinancing, you're buying a house, for most of American consumers, that's the largest financial transaction they'll ever have, right? So there's a lot of nervousness that goes into that. They like being told, hey, your loan's been set in the process, and here's the next step, or here's where rates are moving right now. Now's the time to lock in. They want that information because they want to know that you're looking out for them. So be consistent in your approach, right? And then to really make this all work, you have to have the coordination of the systems, right? Coordination of your data. Whether it's a phone call, someone calls you, you need to know that they called you. that needs to be tied to the customer record. They text you, that needs to be tied to the customer record. How that was handled, the activities, all the data needs to be coordinated. And then more importantly, it needs to be coordinated between your CRM, your LOS, and your POS. That's something that we've done really well at BeSmartee, is having the ability to, if a customer comes in through the website and it goes in through BeSmartee, it's going to go into your LOS, it's going to go into our system, they're going to link up. If your LO starts it into the LOS, they're going to have access to our system, and BeSmartee just the same. Right? So no matter if they start it in the CRM, it's going to push out, both systems will have all the data. So all the data will be coordinated. So any interaction with your customer is going to take place. Right now we see a lot of lenders are struggling with this. They take a phone call, they start an application, someone goes and applies online. Now the customer is having to redo an application, not realizing they've already, taken an application. So it's really kind of a lot of missed ways to give someone a really great customer experience. And we have not done a great job in the industry. The contact study that we just showed show that we're not calling people like we should. And we can just look at the Black Knight came out with the stat that was 19% of customers go back to the same lender. So 81% of the time, we lose the second transaction or the third transaction and fourth transaction. So we're not doing this really well. So we can really hone in on a connection, making sure we're contacting people, not just upfront, but throughout the process, right? And 6 months from now, they want to hear from you. Can be consistent in the approach, then really have all the data coordinated together. Let me go to the next slide, Sabrina. We've kind of talked about this. COVID-19 has really accelerated the move to digital. It just sped time frames up. You looked at Amazon, Peloton, all these virtual companies that goods and services workouts virtually has grown, right? Buying food from Blue Apron and having food delivered to the house. All these things have turned into this really strong virtual world. And really need to figure out, what do you need to do to really help stand out from the crowd, if you will. And so, Joe, it'd be great to hear from you guys on the point of sale slide and the kind of the customer experience. What are you seeing as some best practices, and how have you seen COVID-19 change the market or move this virtual world?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here on this webinar with you, Josh. So really what we've seen in 2019, right out the gate, one stat is we've seen about 110% increase across all of our lenders. So we know that the volume's up. Just the sheer amount of loans, I think, is really kind of staggering the industry as we all try and keep up with this. Kind of as this slide is outlining, a lot of this process can help us stand out from competitors and close more loans, improve the borrower's satisfaction, and improve brand loyalty and retention. So what we've kind of seen throughout this is, with all the technology and automation that we're bringing to bear, our conversion ratio has gone up. So I think that's a great look that we're doing something right. We've gone up to over a 90% conversion ratio as borrowers are kind of working their way through this easy application. We're trying to help not just the borrower out, but also the loan officer, and be able to manage more files, communicate with more borrowers, and keep up with those touch points that Josh has kind of outlined previously. Something interesting today, as I sit on this webinar, I'm not just going through it as someone who works in the industry. About a week ago, I actually had I don't know if the privilege is the right word, but I got to go through an application for myself. So I've entered that millennial stage where I'm trying to get my first home. And I decided, instead of, picking from all my lenders that I could have gone with for pre-qualification, I decided to go through the builder's process and kind of see where we're at. And I maybe lucked out is the right word here, but I lucked out to have one of the more basic applications that I went through. I did a full, 5 out of 6 TRID data points, full application, gave them everything. They did a hard credit pull. And then after that, it took them about 3 days to actually complete a pre-qualification for me. So in terms of improving borrower satisfaction, I would say that was a bit of a letdown. I had to keep, reaching out myself and pushing to be able to get to just a pre-qualification, which is something that we've been able to automate and do within minutes of a borrower starting an application. And Sabrina, we can go to the next slide. Kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, which is, we can see this little graphic at the bottom of what do we want, instant gratification. And when do we want it? We want it now. which is definitely when I wanted my pre-qualification letter. So this is kind of an adapt or die situation. If I had gone into that process without knowing much about the industry, just my personality as a millennial, probably would have given up. I probably would have switched to another application, not knowing why they're asking me some of these questions. Why are they going to do a hard credit pull when I'm more or less shopping and I know that I need to have a pre-qual before people are going to take me seriously. My mom tells me the story when she got her first pre-qualification. She called the bank and she ran some numbers over the phone and asked them to fax over some information of the pre-qual letter, and it happened in a matter of minutes. So I would have been confused. Like, my mom told me this is a short process. Millennials don't like to talk to people on the phone quite as much. I think that's why we might be seeing those text stats go up and hit 9%. And I probably would have maybe given up the process or gone to another one in the face of all the work I had to do. We're finding an omni-channel shopper study. We're finding that the majority of U.S. shoppers are now in segments that aren't walking in and using bank branches, or they're not caring much for the branches or making phone calls, or both. They kind of want to self-serve. I think DoorDash is a good example. I'm paying more money for my food, but it very easily comes to my door, and I'm okay with that. That's a trade-off that I'm willing to take, is just to have a simple process that gets me what I want in a quick manner. So we're seeing branch dependence dwindle as kind of shoppers like myself hit the market and are kind of wanting something a bit quicker. So what we're seeing is a virtual CX transformation. This does require investment in the right digital mortgage partners. From what I was doing, it seemed like this builder had set up some sort of partnership with somebody for an application that I was going through. But even the parts that should have made my life easier, they actually made it a bit of a challenge. Instead of me going through some powerful technology to simplify this complex process, it was almost like the technology made it harder. Their document uploader would be a great example. They sent us an email out requesting some documents, and they did have a secure document uploader. So I was like, all right, I'm seeing some trappings of civilization here. And my fiance actually was the one that uploaded all the documents. We didn't hear anything back, so I was like, all right, I'll give him a phone call. I get on the phone with my loan officer, and she couldn't even see the documents that my fiance had uploaded. I could see them in the portal. She wasn't able to access them at all. So then I kind of had to go through the process again, re-upload everything, and then confirm via email that she actually, had those documents. So that was a point where the technology really could have taken off. We see it as possible to not only automate the request for the initial underwriting conditions of a borrower, but very facilitate, keep all the documents in one place. Loan officer can always access them, whether they're on their phone or logged into the portal, wherever they may be. And as Josh was saying, all this info we're taking, we're sharing with our partners. So info is going out to the CRM to keep everyone in that platform up to speed. This info is going to go to the LOS, and hopefully, not have that conversation with the borrower that we can't find the docs that were uploaded, even though I kind of did the legwork there. We want to automate to reduce human error. I apologize, Sabrina, if we could go back for just one moment. The reducing the human error with the automation, I see that as another big touch point of the experience that I went through. They had, what I was told afterwards, they had 25 applications land in that kind of same time period as when I put in mine, which really slowed them down. And I think with the automation that we could see with platforms like BeSmartee and Insellerate working together, we're seeing not just the ability to handle 25 pre-qualifications easy. We're seeing the ability to land hundreds of closed loans in a given month. So carry this all the way, not just through that pre-qual experience, but into closing and managing our files and just being able to keep up with sheer volume. We could go next slide now. Thank you, Sabrina. So really this leads into how our platforms could have improved the customer experience. As you can imagine, I've got my notebook. I've been writing down my notes of if BeSmartee would have been there as I went through the application, what would have been different for me? And at a high level, I can say just the speed of which I would have gotten everything would have been increased. So we would have automated, the data, the various processes, and we would have gone deeper in a shorter amount of time than it took me. That would have improved not just my experience. When I got on the phone with my loan officer, I could hear the stress in her voice under the sheer amount of work that she has to do. I think it would have been a better experience for her too. She wouldn't have to be, trying to send me emails at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I would have had automated emails going out without her assistance, or, she would have had extra time with her smaller workload to be able to just reach out to me and kind of be a little less stressed as she goes through this time period. And Josh, I'll go ahead. I know that, you have a snippet here to jump in and kind of go over how Insellerate, as well could have improved, maybe not just my experience, but other user experiences out there.
Yeah, I think having the coordination of our platforms and really having, connection, consistency, and the coordination of it. You gave a great example. You uploaded documents, your wife uploaded documents, neither people knew it, right? So you had to give the information twice, could ask the questions twice. Having that upfront information whether they start in the CRM, right? So you're out there and someone refers someone to, and you start the application in the CRM because you want to put them in a marketing campaign. And then it goes into the LOS, or during that marketing campaign, that customer goes online and starts an application online and gets a pre-approved loan, gets a pre-approval through the BeSmartee application. That file is going to be updated in our platform. It's also going to be updated in your LOS, so that when you have that conversation with a customer, the second time, you're going to know, oh, I see that now you have your wife is here as a co-borrower, or whatever is taking place, you'll know about it. So the kind of coordination of being able to give good answers at the right time. And I think that's something that Joe, you're mentioning, is the not knowing what's going on, not knowing the process, right, and not having a way to quickly interact or get something, do it yourself. Customers want to do things on their own terms, right? I want to buy a new pair of shoes at 10 o'clock on Saturday night before I go to bed, and I can, right? It's a great experience. I could even potentially have those shoes to my house the following day by like 1 o'clock or even 10 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it may be, right? So customers want that instant access. So you have to be able to be open 24/7, which means your data also has to be aligned. So no matter where that customer comes in, that experience doesn't end, right? It's a continual experience, not separate ones. You don't want to have someone has an online experience, which is different than on the phone experience, which is different than an in-person experience. So you really need to, make those, they all coordinate together. You can help people have just one consistent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just that one circumstance of if the documents would have uploaded, like that alone would have made, my life easier. And that was just one piece of many that I went through.
Yeah, people, in the mortgage industry, what's kind of great, I think looking in is this is a service industry, right? And we have to remember that. I was a lender for years, and anytime we hired new employees and orientation, I'd come in the first day with all the groups. I would say, listen, I'd ask everyone this question: what industry are we in? Most people would say things like financial, real estate, all these different things. I said, well, it's financial, but it's the financial service industry. So we have to understand we're serving customers, right? And that's our industry that we're in. So how do you serve a customer better? You give them a better experience, you make it easier for you to take an application. We all have this experience. You pick up the phone and you're trying to make a doctor's appointment. You're getting your car insurance updated. You're calling about your mortgage, about a payoff balance. And you call the first person, you type some stuff in the phone, or you talk to someone, then they transfer you to someone else, and then you have to give them the information a second time, tell them the story a second time, right? And then, that's a really bad experience. And we all know that's a bad experience. We don't have to, that's not rocket science to figure that one out. That's a bad experience. And if you're not shopping yourself right now, like I think Joe, whatever lender you went through, you should give them your notes, and you as a lender should actually do that yourself. See what that customer experience is. If you can make that customer experience and wow them, you can get loan 2, loan 3, loan 4, loan 5. They say the average customer, depending on what study I've seen, is between 7 to 11 loans and transactions in their lifetime. Well, these customers are worth a lot of money. Give them great service, and they're going to be able to easily, you'll get the business today, and you'll get it tomorrow as well.
I have a good experience, I'm not going to want to go anywhere else. As it currently stands, what I've gone through, I would not go back and do this again. But no, I've got my notes. I'm going to be sharing it with them, and see if I can help them improve what they have. So, maybe I would be a return borrower and come back and do maybe my second or third with them as kind of those milestones and moments hit me in my life. Which is why, I do think it is fairly important for lenders to be successful to kind of embrace this and give people that better experience. I know there's a McKinsey study out there that's saying, companies should and need to focus on a virtual digital experience that is on par or even better with the in-person experience, which I think goes great with what Josh said. Like, even if you go in person, it should be the same experience than if you did it online. You shouldn't be going through a whole other workflow. Everything should be buttoned up. So that way, maybe I do half of it in the branch and half of it at home, and it's going to feel exactly the same no matter where I'm sitting.
Yeah, convenience. Customers want convenience.
Yes.
I think about your cell phone. In late 90s, I was involved. In early 2000, I got involved in some wireless technology stuff. And in that, there was the thought of using a GPS on a phone. And the thought at the time was, no one's going to use a GPS on the phone because no one wants to be tracked like that. And we as consumers would never want to be tracked and have a GPS on our phone because it doesn't feel safe. Now, fast forward, 21 years later, we love the GPS on the phone. It's convenient. We don't care about the security. We don't care if Google or Uber knows where we're at, because guess what? They know where I'm at, and they can tell me my drive home's 13 minutes, or my drive into work is 16 minutes. Take a different route, whatever it may be. That's convenience. People want convenience. Make it easier for people to buy. Make it very convenient, and you'll get more customers. Especially in our industry. I think what's great about the timing right now for lenders. 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, 2 years ago, in order to implement this type of technology, you'd have to have a big staff yourself, spend lots and lots of money, and figure it all out, right? That's why you have Rocket Mortgage had went out there and built all their own software by themselves early in the market, because you can't go get it off the shelf. You can now, though. I think that's what lenders need to understand. Lenders of any size can start leveraging this technology, and easily and effectively. Right. So I think we go to the next slide, Sabrina. And just to kind of finalize, now's a good time in the marketplace to actually make these changes. Right. The market's going to be very forgiving in any mistakes you make, because there's so much volume out there. But let's not get fooled by that. That does change. Right. That's going to change when rates go up. So what I would say is, if right now is an opportunity to impress a lot of customers, invest money. Everyone's making record profits. Invest some of that money now, so you can basically buy loans for yourself in the future by giving someone a great customer experience. Right? You can invest now, then you'll invest, and you can get loan number 2 or loan number 3, 4, or 5. Make that investment and do those things now. We have 2 products to help you do that: our CRM and lead management system, that is mobile and desktop. You can access your data, distribute leads, manage workflows, interact with real estate referral partners. Then we have our engagement platform. That's where we're going to automate communication through email, through text, through Ring's voicemail, through Facebook posts, etc. So if you have any questions for us, please reach out to us, and I know Joe as well. With that, Joe, any final thoughts?
I think my final thoughts would be to comment on something you said. You'd mentioned, it's not something that these lenders have to go out and build themselves anymore. It's not that upfront work, which I think is really important. At this point, and using Insellerate as an example, you've done the development, you've gone through the headaches, you've fixed, whatever, you've tweaked it to make it better, and then you have a group of users using you and helping you learn even more. So that by the time, fast forward to where we're at today, anyone who joined you have all sorts of industry knowledge of how they could use the system, get it stood up even faster than it's previously taken. So that's the cool thing, I think, is with BeSmartee and Insellerate. As each year that goes by, we get a little smarter. We learn a little bit more. We have more insight into what borrowers want. And then that's definitely some of the hidden values of our system that we can bring to lenders is what we're seeing on the grand scale, not just from a single application point.
Excellent. With that, if anyone wants to get a hold of us, I think our contact information is there. Sabrina, turn it back over to you, and if there's any questions, I think.
Yeah, we do have some questions. One for Insellerate, one for BeSmartee. So Josh, how do you manage digital leads that come in from the website?
That's a good question. That's something that a lot of lenders have asked us recently. How are they able to take a web contact form, just a quick, call me now, bit of information, and actually then manage them? Our system has open APIs. We can take web form information from whether it's a lend entry, lower my bills, or their own personal website. Our system takes that lead and actually can look at things like state licensing, like loan purpose, purchase refi, loan type, VA, USDA, FHA, and route those leads to the appropriate people and actually make contact. And I think that's one of the really powerful things just at the very beginning of this is the kind of the contact and consistency is having a platform that automates those initial contacts.
Great. And then Joey, how do LOs communicate with borrowers in the system?
That is, man, I have a lot of answers for that question. A lot of ways to communicate between borrowers and loan officers. From an automated standpoint, we have all sorts of emails and text messages that can go out, keeping both the loan officer and borrower kind of in tandem, working together, meeting their milestones. From a direct communication standpoint, we've built in instant chat tools so that the borrower and loan officer can be chatting anytime they're in the system together. We have the ability, obviously to connect them via phone, list out all that contact info, or, even when a loan officer is available, what their days are on, what, their days off are. So that way, if a borrower is there at 2 a.m, they're not upset that they can't get a hold of their loan officer because it says they'll be in the office at 8 a.m. the next day. So a lot of different collaboration tools there, and screen sharing, I think, is the last one I would list. The ability for them to view the file at the same time and even pass controls back and forth to kind of facilitate getting through everything and answering questions.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, we'll close it out. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Keep an eye out for the recorded version of this webinar, and we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.